else who's going to jump in and join the conversation. Do Breakthrough Wellness. Hello, Teresa. Glad to have you. So, Susan, I would love for you to tell everybody how you came to start your business.
Great. And I don't know what you've already told them because I just hopped on. Is there any framework for what?
I only said in the post that you were coming, that you are a somatic movement therapist and author and dance educator, that you're going to tell us about more about how you started your business.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes. So I guess as everyone you talk to, our business kind of blossoms through from who we are. And
exactly.
as a dancer, um, just out of my own passion, no lineage in my family or anything, I just really wanted to move and dance. And then I also found that I had a really strong academic side, in high school, and I was really a little nerdy and a writer and English and things like that. So I think it's interesting that then when I got to college, I found this course in what was called then experiential anatomy, where we were studying our body, but through movement and through coloring anatomy plates and through journaling about our own relationship with different parts of our body. And this was just amazing to me. It felt like it was kind of bridging my body mind interests.
So interesting. I've seen those coloring anatomy books that the pre-med students would take, and I never thought about, as a visual person, that that would be a way in.
Yeah, the
That's
vision
amazing.
and the movement, and was kind of integrated in with my dance training.
Yeah.
So I just found it was really rich in a kind of holistic way that I hadn't, even though I loved dancing, that I hadn't quite found. Dancing had been more like training my instrument, like
Right.
body machine a little bit. So this was a real shift for me. So I found when I graduated from college, I ended up, of course, I was a dance teacher teaching at a private high school. And I quickly saw, like, wow, these kids are so stressed about their bodies
Mm,
and all the pressure on them, whether athletes or dancers or just feeling like the body changes. So I started thinking, maybe these somatic approaches could really help them.
and you knew the term somatic already from you?
No, it,
No,
it
you
wasn't
just knew.
it wasn't called somatics then, actually. I don't think that
Uh,
field. I have to chase my,
yeah,
academic lineage to figure it out, but I'm pretty sure we weren't using that term yet.
yeah,
Um,
because
so
that term is fairly new to me. So
yeah,
everything is, when we meet it. So thanks.
would you like me to back up and just unpack that word for a minute for people?
No, I actually think it's coming through just in your story.
Okay, and we'll do that
Yeah, thanks.
if you want. Well, basically, soma means the body experienced from within. So that is what I was just describing, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I felt these teens could use that kind of approach. Like, I guess the difference to me was, see if this makes sense, but every other subject is sort of about something outside yourself. They didn't have like programs in meditation and social emotional learning back then, but
Mm-hmm.
it felt like, okay, so I'm learning history, that's about that, and I'm these different literature, it's about us. But I just felt there needed to be a container where people could just, what they were exploring was themselves, not therapy, but your body and your movement and your body mind relationship. So that's what was really interesting me about this content. It wasn't like to teach them the anatomy, that was
Mm-hmm.
a part of it, but it was really more to give them a place to come home to themselves.
Amazing.
Maybe I
I
would.
I barely understand it, and it sounds really good. Okay. So you were a teacher and you started to
Ah,
think about this. Yeah.
yeah, and then what I found was I started to try to say, all right, I'm going to teach this stuff, this that I learned, these somatic approaches, this embodied anatomy. But I found that a lot of the ways it was taught was really developed for an older population, for
Mm-hmm.
I even sometimes say I think this whole field of somatics developed because we have such a body mind split in our Western educational system and our culture.
Right. Right.
whole like generations of adults needed this to reintegrate.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, why wait, until we're adults? Why not do this with the teens? So anyway, I found these approaches. We learned from our mistakes. It didn't all go brilliantly in the
There's a life lesson and business lesson too.
yes.
Sure.
So I took about 12 years basically to refine this and really try to look at how can I meet this age group where they are so they feel agency in this. I'm not just some other adult telling them to do something, but I'm providing a platform for them to grow and learn for themselves that was relevant to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was able to do that. And it was very powerful for them, this course. So I was then in my graduate work and I wrote that up as a curriculum, which was kind of the, precursor to my book, The Embodied Teen, which is, then developed further since then. Yeah, so that's how I got interested in somatics and bringing it to other people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
First in this work with teens.
So then the book really was just another way for you to get this information out there.
Yes,
Yeah.
about 20 years later.
Yeah.
And
Incredible.
I actually tried to publish it a few times along the way.
Yeah.
And I felt like the timing of the culture and it didn't seem it was ready or anyway. But this time when I approached a publisher, it just was like right away they could see the value now. I think
So interesting.
I know it's timing of when we recognize what's needed. I mean, the mental health of teens right now, even before the pandemic and then through the pandemic and now trying to reintegrate, it's a very serious issue. And I
Mm-hmm.
people are seeing, all hands on deck. What approaches might actually support, I think people are thinking mainly about mental health, but I think
Mm-hmm.
they're reevaluating what that means.
Mm.
And so these kind of
Yeah.
come
I
even
think
then.
I think of how our culture does, like, there is certainly more talk about mental health, but even at some level, maybe it's the old guard structure still remains. Um, like we're will almost like your lack of health is your problem. Like, why aren't you fixing this yourself? And I think of how at least there's an opening maybe for the youth to say, oh, well, they do deserve help, right? They do deserve some support, and there are enough parents that are like, I will pay anything to help this, help create relief for my child. So maybe this can be more and more almost like I picture a lever opening for our society to say it is important, and I'm glad it can start with the youth, but really it's all of us.
Exactly. And I find out with another, so since then, the other part of my work has become teacher training. And the importance of that is just what you're saying, is that really the only way we can offer this is through our own embodied presence. And so if it's just theory and then we're going in to teach, especially teens, they're in a second,
Right.
they feel what's real.
Yes.
So you can't just be bringing it in theory, you have to live it.
Yes.
And so then
And isn't that awesome and terrible at the same time? I mean, I find that as a business coach too, right? Everything I'm saying to you, I'm saying to me, I need to hear it. I'm practicing it. And I'm, of course, attracting the people who are in a similar mindset, like come from the same kind of pot of struggle. And yet it's like irony and perfect, right? That like the call to
I,
yourself is the call to others.
yes, right. Yeah, so it really is that the adults coming are really seeing, well, I want more of this training so that I can embody it and then I can bring it out into the world. And I think for me, you get to a certain point, apologies to anyone who still works with teens. I mean, blessings, I should say to anyone. But, I worked for 12, 15 years with that age group. And then I felt like, oh, okay, I need a bit of a break. And I feel like now the thing of training teachers is then each one of those teachers goes into their context and really makes quite a big impact. So at this
Yeah.
I'm mainly doing the teacher training work, and some with teens, but mainly with the teachers now.
Mhm. Yeah, and I love that where your impact can go even further
Yes.
with this is something I coach my clients. How can you have the impact that you're dreaming of without just you working harder, right?
Yeah.
So strategically, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. I'm glad you found that.
And actually, that's making me want to say, I might just show if that's okay. This is my
Yeah.
book, The Embodied Teen.
Yes, I'm glad you have it. Yes. It's
And
it's
the subtitle is A Somatic Curriculum for Teaching Body Mind Awareness, Kinesthetic Intelligence, and Social Emotional Skills. So it's really that holistic, kind of work. And when you said about increasing your reach, I shouldn't quite announce it yet because it's not out yet, but it should be out in a few months. It's actually
ooh,
getting
juicy secret.
getting translated into Korean.
Oh, amazing.
Yes. So they have a very big, especially in PE there, physical education departments have a really growing interest in somatic approaches. So I think there's going to be a lot of big reach there.
Yes, and may what for one little I know, um, pressure on a certain kind of body is very, very strong, especially for Korean girls. I don't know how it is for boys,
Uh-huh.
but very, what do you call it? Something like, I think something about our size two is their size six, is something that I read that they're like, what's wrong with you for not being smaller, basically. It just, and that's just, of course, one way to say it.
Right.
So may that be healed through your book.
Yes, and that's part of it is it's giving some space for what's really this is really important what you're bringing up, May, because a lot of somatic approaches don't actually include this. But I happen to, when you're back to going to graduate school, study dance anthropology.
Mm,
The things that gave me, I call it the anthropological lens, like when you put your
yeah,
glass on,
yeah,
which is to really recognize the level that culture impacts us and often what's being called now, unconscious bias, often unconsciously.
hmm,
Specifically at that teenage years, they're absorbing so much unconsciously about what the culture's telling them about their body, about their sexuality, about their identity. And it really gives a place to recognize some of that and
yeah,
see it impacting your body, not just your body image, but even physically. So, like an example, that the six pack ab thing.
mm,
A lot of times or models, people see models with that thin waist and in
yeah,
belly, and that can really restrict your breathing
mm,
because when we breathe the diaphragm naturally descends.
right.
Those organs have to go somewhere.
Yes. I
And
just learned how to breathe into my whole lungs. And, and yeah, basically it is almost like consciously is the word distending your abdomen. Like it really is at least starts with that kind of action. And that's a little bit like, yeah, unconsciously taboo.
yes, it is to have a belly is taboo.
Yeah.
So to kind of begin to recognize that in our bodies. The other one that comes up a lot in my work with teens, well, with adults too, is this idea of a straight spine. A lot of people use that term, in yoga, let's you straighten your spine. But our spine isn't straight. It actually has these beautiful curves.
Right.
Feel right
Right.
here of this cervical curve.
Yes. Oh, nice. And
Oh,
thank you. Mindiology UK says the title, cover, and content of your book sounds great.
oh, thank
So
you.
great for checking that out and seeing where maybe you can bring it into the UK, more distribution there.
Oh, is that what you're saying? I'm not seeing the comment.
Yeah, that's okay. Just
Great. Well,
letting you know.
feel
Yeah.
be in touch. Yes. Uh,
Yes.
but I love, I'm still loving this, just finding myself.
Yes, it's good.
Fine.
I was just thinking about my posture and how I've learned also that I tend to do this instead of this.
Hmm.
And Where did that come from? I'm sure it came from wanting to appear relaxed, wanting to appear smaller, keeping myself small in the room, something like that.
Mm,
Yeah, just allowing the space to
mm.
be. Yeah,
And can I ask you something about that?
yeah, sure.
How does it feel to say that, to recognize it and to speak it?
I mean, it's been the last couple of years to recognize more and more my Asian identity in white supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy. I've grown a lot in naming how that's impacted me because really before that, I thought that I um, could slip through. And yeah, so it's been a couple of years unpacking that more and more. But of course, yeah, there's rage, there's grief, there's kind of like what's the word? Like striving for um self-belief,
Mm,
self-devotion, and yet also a simultaneous wanting to receive myself where I am.
mm. Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Is it all right if I reflect on that a moment?
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
The two gestures, this one, or my version of it, and this one,
Yeah.
how much gesture also speaks about our experience and our expression and helps us to integrate what we're speaking.
I've learned to speak with my hands since this whole camera land that we've been in,
Yeah,
Zoom and
yeah,
coaching and teaching. But yeah, it has helped me. I mean, I'm a very visual person.
yeah,
So sometimes I wish people could just see what I'm really trying to say and I could just
right.
paint it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that's an immigrant, child of immigrant thing too, of language.
Mm,
Like, wish I could just, yeah, let you watch the movie. But
yeah,
yeah, this helps me
yeah,
illustrate.
yeah. So I want to just bring in the two last threads of this, that of what
Yeah,
just.
thanks.
So one of them is that imagine then if I might use you as an example because you
Yeah.
just that sense of, oh, I guess being small and trying not to take space, and oh, maybe it's also related to my self-image, to the culture of my Asian heritage, all of that subtlety that you're recognizing.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how empowering this would be to have teens be able to recognize that from their various cultural heritages and really become empowered to see, okay, well, do I want that? Is that an identity that feels true to me? Or is that something that was put on me that I'm ready to let go of?
Mm,
I think, especially now with the recognition of the amount of oppression and what you were speaking about, it's especially relevant to help people have some space to just sense into that and free themselves from some of that unconscious oppression or bias or whatever they might have inherited.
Certainly, I would have wished to know, be more conscious of all of what I just described earlier.
Right. And the
I,
difference is that in this kind of curriculum, I'm not coming in with the agenda that you'll do that. I'm not like, okay, I'm going to tell them about their oppression and learn how, not that that approach might work. And I know people have
mm-hmm,
programs, but this is more just space for you and your body. And then you discover what's relevant. So, especially for teens, I find, but for anyone really, it's this process of discovering for yourself that you feel more ownership and that it's really what's important to you is what you're learning, rather
mm-hmm.
than learning the curriculum that I'm offering, right? It's really more about what you discover about yourself.
I as a coach, I feel like I have a lot of insight and I can see things, but this thing, what you're just pointing out, that I that you're leading people to their own discoveries as opposed to You know what's happening here.
Yeah.
What an art that is.
Yes.
And because I'm learning it with adults, I can only imagine the challenge it can be for working with youth
Yeah.
because of that, mostly because they're so sharp and so willing to call BS,
Yes. Or
right? And sniff a fake, all of that stuff.
yeah. So,
It's awesome. I mean, it's part of their superpower, right? No um uh giver of no fucks. I mean, there's like ways that they're not tied into making you feel good. In some ways they're gonna poke at the
yeah.
weaknesses. So
Yeah.
what a challenge that you have found a way through that. I
Yeah.
mean, a great a victory that you found a way through that challenge.
Yeah.
Um, and
I want
this,
to say the second part of that for a minute.
okay,
So
yeah.
the first part is about the teens from your example of your own, what we just did together. But what that also brings up is then a whole other part of my work that I haven't talked about yet is that I am a somatic movement therapist and work individually with adults. And that, what we just did, is part of the kind of work that I do.
Mm-hmm.
Is so how to help the expression in the moment reveal what's important for you and to look at what that means in your life. And anyway, so I just wanted to note that
Yes.
and that, but what we just did, that's often the kind of thing I'm doing in individual sessions also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. You had said, "Oh, let's bring the practice in," and I was like, "Sure." And
Oh,
there it was, smoothly,
some of it.
smoothly introduced. Thank you. Would you mind then tell us about your greatest joy in your work? I
Yeah.
can see lots of possibilities, but just what is that nugget of motivation for you?
Hmm. I know I thought of so many things when you said that was one of the questions. We'll see what's bubbling up right here.
Yeah.
Um, I think one of them is the word that comes to me is depth. I
Mm,
feel my own experience in our culture is things go really fast, and there's a lot of pull toward outer distraction. You could have one more ad or one more thing or one more article to read. It's sort of maybe a little overwhelming. And I find that I really like to have time with people to take that same like amount of energy, but to focus it inside and have some time to land and find some depth in things. So I know joy sounds like, oh, joy. And then I'm saying, oh, depth, that they're different. But I think you can get to the joy through the depth too.
oh yeah, I know joy can look like many. I mean, it's really what I mean is what's the deep satisfaction of what's truly you. I mean, that's my thing is alignment with your authentic self, right? So that bit of maybe flow or something that really fits who you are.
And I think that's it. I think it's the depth. So when
Yeah.
I'm doing that, that's when I'm in my greatest joy. And I do this other thing called authentic movement. That's not my own approach. It's a lineage, and I teach it and have groups and things. And that's another way to take some space to just go deeply in yourself and find that authentic expression. So it's almost like my greatest joy is supporting people to find that place in
Yeah.
themselves that feels really authentic, whether it's the teens or the adults or dancers or non-dancers,
Hmm.
feel really. And then what happens is some kind of transformation, almost like I have that image of when you're chipping away at a sculpture and then the rock's falling off and then finally it reveals.
Reveals. Yes.
I feel like we're each trying to just really reveal, like, well, who really
Yes.
is my fullest being.
Yeah.
And I know that's a big lofty joy goal, but that sort of feels like what's my greatest joy is when
That's
I
what my swim is. That's what my swim is with my clients too. And for me, just your business is where you get to express it, where the sculpture gets to be um, made manifest in some
yeah,
ways, right? It's the thing that you're bringing outside yourself, because of course, many things can be true in here right up until you try to bring it outside yourself. Welcome, Sherry D and Wrapped Rocks. do jump in with comments or questions for Susan, and thanks for coming in and listening.
Yeah, welcome.
Um, Thank you for sharing that piece about depth. It's
Mm.
beautiful. It's a beautiful way to know you, and an invitation, I think, for all of us to think about how we best work and
Yeah,
how to seek that out.
and it's true because I also have to acknowledge, honestly, not everyone has that value. Not everyone
Absolutely.
go that deep and do, so everyone has to find the match that really is what their next piece is, right? And it's
Yes.
everyone doesn't want that.
Yeah. But
Or
that's
at
why
certain
these
times,
conversations are so
times in your life
important.
too.
Yes. Sorry, we had a little lag in the internet for a second, but um, yes, I think I heard you say it just
I,
depends on the time and the person. Eh, Another lag.
yeah,
Did I miss you? Can you just say that again?
and different times in our life, I was just saying. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, Mindiology says, great listening to you both, ladies. All the best. Hopefully, I will tune
I'm still
again
here,
soon. Bye for
though. I'll
now.
just
Thank
wait for
you.
you.
Thank you for joining
I
us.
think you're still there. Yeah.
Um, what I was going to say is, well, this is why I love these conversations, is that everybody does get to express their own um, different, who they are comes out differently in their business. So I appreciate that
Yeah.
all together, people may hear something and see some aspect of themselves they didn't know they had themselves or they had thought or didn't know to express, or we can just
Yeah.
I say we can live many possible lives just by hearing people's stories and really
Yeah.
like sitting in them a little
Yeah.
bit, and in a way we try them on, in a way we gain what we need, and name things that we didn't know we needed to name. So
And
thank
really,
you.
another piece that I didn't share. I don't know how much time we have if I can share another aspect of my
Sure.
journey, my business. Um, and that is that I wonder what point this happened for me. I'm trying to remember. I think it was at the time I was teaching in the high schools. I was also taking, my graduate work in dance anthropology and things. And I learned about Bali, Indonesia, which was at the time I was studying dance and they were looking at the different sacred dances, ritual practices in Bali. And in this course, I heard about this dance called the Sangyang Dadari, which is a trance dance, which I hadn't really heard of much. And the basic idea of it is that when there's a problem in a village, whether a drought or a you know, illness or whatever, they would perform this dance. And it was taking two of the youngest girls in the village who hadn't danced or anything. They were just, the girls who were chosen. And they would put them in a trance and put them on the shoulders of these two men. And then in perfect unison, do my little Balinese dance here, these girls would dance this Sangyang Dadari dance and then be taken out of trance at the end. And then whatever was going on in the village would be healed. Yes. So this feeling of the actual movement of dance being able to heal really
Mm,
with me, that actually there's something, well, the two things that resonated was the sense of our body being spirit as well as flesh, and
yeah.
that there's a relationship with the spiritual and the human dimension, and that dance and movement could be healing for communities and for individuals. So I bring that up because that led to a whole, 12 years of my relationship with Bali. I dance the Balinese dance, and I carve masks that I use and perform with that are sacred performing masks. So that was like a whole part of my lineage that I felt was really about trying to look at that relationship between body and spirit. And I felt like, at least for me in that Balinese culture, they had a way of talking about that I hadn't had in my own Western dance education. They have words,
Mm.
sekala and niskala. So there's a material world, the table here, and then there's the spiritual dimension. And to them, they're equally real and they're integrated. So this was a really important part of my path that I thought I should at least have mentioned for the full dimension
Yeah, it's
work.
great to hear more about that. Um, I just had a smiling thought that you know that this podcast is called the Disco Power Up, and I don't explain it a lot, but my point is that it's dance disco for me is just like the era that makes me happy of but really what I'm trying to get at is the power of um sort of listening to your body's cues. To me, disco, what I think of is it's very freestyle. It's very, there's a beat, move however you want, and that there's a freedom to that kind of moving our body instead of all the serious thinking and implementing and strategizing that we do. And this is, of course, speaking to me and the people that I'm working with is something like overthinking, perfectionism to no, you have what you need, move intuitively to the beat and there's no wrong answer, right answer, wrong answer.
Yeah.
Like just enjoy yourself and do whatever. I mean, we have these limbs and torso, we have it and
Yeah.
it gets to be right. There's like at least that's what disco for me is. And overall like a fairly happy upbeat vibe
Yeah.
because it reminds me again like yes, there are very serious things happening. And yet we get to have this 3.5 minutes of like joy just in our own radius.
Yeah. I'm thinking of this book my sister gave me for Christmas one year. It was called Dance First, Think Later. It's got
Yeah.
just great, inspiring, like disco power up kind of quotes.
Oh,
And
good.
it's good because, as you said, you teach what you need to learn. And I think this
Yeah.
body mind relationship, because I am also quite, an author and thinking, and I have to
Yeah.
watch that too. That how do we stay embodied and, yeah, keep that balance in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for letting me explain that. I'm working on how to explain that, but I just said it, that's the name. We'll just let it get figured out along the way.
It's
So,
percolating.
yes, it percolates and it just is there. So last question is, what is one business challenge that you're facing right now?
Yes, I thought about that one too. This is, you say if this is the kind of thing you're thinking about, but I feel like one of my business challenges is that I've always been a visionary. So I have this big vision, and that's part of my book was like putting out the big vision. But then there's the small steps that get you to a big vision.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes the same amount of, uh, it takes a different type of patience and clarity and methodical effort to actually take steps toward that big vision.
Mm-hmm. And where's the challenge there for you?
I think the challenge is that I want it all happening now. Like I want this in schools, and I want teachers trained, and I want this whole thing to be in our culture and feel that there's more support for our youth. And well, that's all great, but what are you going to do today? Maybe you should call back those people who said they might want a da da da, right? So
Mm,
it's just really attuning to what's the next piece that I can contribute or I can offer or that makes sense in my life. I mean, I can't, we all want to change the world on some level, right? But if we hold that, it's just too much. I'm one being, I'm one walking, breathing animal human.
right. Right. That wakes up and goes to sleep. And yeah.
Has to eat and yeah.
So then when you think of that next thing in front of you, what
Mm.
gets in the way of that? just doing that thing?
Um, Nothing. It's just I'd like to do it with more calm and confidence and one piece is enough feeling rather
Mm,
doing it, but it's really I should have done five of them. Or it's like striving to
yeah.
the bigger picture faster than we can get there. I think that's the stress.
Mm, mm,
Because
yeah.
that body mind balance, stress in our bodies, as I'm teaching my people, is not healthy. So
Yeah.
you want to be, as we talked about, you want to be able to come from a place that has that embodied wholeness.
Hmm. Yeah, and another aspect of that I'm learning that's a lot of things, mind, body, and energy. I don't know. I'm learning about this too. But that stress does not help me write that email well.
Yeah,
Stress doesn't help me make that invitation with freedom and love.
yeah,
Stress doesn't help me, or pressure, or whatever it is, to go faster, doesn't really get me there faster, right?
yeah, yeah.
So what do you do with that stress? How do you manage it for yourself?
Oh, a lot of great ways. I actually have meditation practice that I do, and also one that I teach. I swim, I
Hmm.
walk by the bay.
Yeah,
So, just the daily things that help to keep a balance.
yeah.
You know, the other thing I'm thinking when you say the biggest challenge, it's sort of like that's the personal side, and then there's also the sort of business side. So I feel just to mention that one too.
Well,
And
they're all the same. Business, personal, but yeah.
yeah, but anyway, what I'm thinking is the other challenge is just reaching the kind of educators who would want this training and or the kind of schools that would be open to implementing this in their curriculums. So that's another challenge is how to, I mean, the book's there, but hefty, it's like 300 pages and a curriculum, and not everyone is going to read this and, get the content from the book.
Hmm.
How to have enough, yeah, where there's those openings to connect with like-minded people and institutions and superintendents and whatever it would be that would help move this to a bigger level in its impact for people.
So the challenge is how to get it to the right people. Is that what I'm thinking about? It's kind of like what you said about moving from working with teens to educators of teens, right? That's a way you can up level the reach in a
Yeah,
strategy way instead of just talking more.
right. And that's what I do in the teacher trainings, but how to get that teacher training out to more people and programs that it would actually then, be implemented.
Sure. Yeah, but in parallel, it's another place where you can apply that same principle of who. So even right now, if you think about it, who's like one ideal person? Like, well, that's just a dream. If I could get this either book or like the idea of the book in the hands of who?
Um, Give me 1 minute because I know the
Yeah.
two, but I'm just going to see. Um, Michelle Obama, Jill Biden, they're both heavily into education.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Thurmond, Oakland,
Mm.
education
Mm-hmm.
superintendent. Um, Mindfulness programs. There's some people in the Bay Area I'm in touch with who are in those programs. Mind and Life Institute is the Dalai Lama's program that looks at bringing social emotional learning into the schools. These are the kind of like minded organizations and people.
Yeah. I just think of Tony Thurmond because I feel like, you and I are both bodily in the Oakland Bay area.
Yeah,
I feel like there are people who were just like a degree or two from to get to him.
yeah,
I mean,
yes.
he was number 3 on your listed names. Maybe we should call in Michelle Obama first because she's the first person that you talked
Well,
about.
And Kamala Harris. Well, I don't want to say her name wrong, but right, because she's
Kamala.
Kamala. Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's from our. She's local too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just think of like starting the machine
Mhm.
to make connections there.
And maybe you
Uh
haven't spoken that publicly. I'm amazed you asked me and then I answered because, but who knows who is listening and knows someone who knows someone. So yes.
who knows who's listening, who's going to listen. This podcast is going to live on all the
Oh,
podcast places on YouTube for as long as I'm around, as far as I know.
right,
So
right.
it could really, I mean, the energy of this gets to live on in places we don't even know. But the most powerful thing is that you named it for yourself, right?
Yeah,
To
yeah,
be clear. And I just like to work with my clients to say, pick one or two, right? To not be overwhelmed. Or maybe it's one a week. I don't know. But like just to make it real, right? Make it very tangible. One
right.
person, and then you just get to, I met you in a networking event. So like
Yeah,
that this is what we do, right? Amazing things have happened just by a person. And I'll say I've gotten every job I've gotten was like a dream job. Like I'm very intentional about where I've worked. And every single time it was just like, hey, I want this. Do you know someone? And someone said like they felt my energy about it and doors opened. My previous guest Malachi has a story about this amazing documentary that he got made, that he just got a spark and then he just needed like 16 doors to open exactly the right way.
yeah,
And his passion, the energy of it got him through in, I would call a kind of miraculous way.
yeah. I
It's,
want to say one thing about that was brings me that great joy again to say,
yeah,
when I was doing this book, the hardest thing was I decided, it really has to have photos of teens doing this work because people are going to go, somatics, what are you doing? And can teens do this? So I decided I had to have a photo shoot for a few months with a group of teens. I put out an email. I was just like, I have to make this happen. I put out an email to a few dance teen lists, the places I taught. Within an hour, I had 12 replies from teens themselves, like, I want this, I'll come.
wow.
And then
Yeah,
I also wanted to make sure that there was diversity represented in the book. Anyway, I'm just showing you a few photos, different things, but of things we're
yeah.
doing. And anyway, I was amazed that the group of teens that came was from all walks of life and sizes and genders and races. And I was able to have some representation that felt
Just
really,
what you hoped for, right?
yeah.
Yeah, magic happens with our intentions. Wrapped
Yeah.
Rocks says, thanks, great work you both do. Keep up the great work. Ciao for now. Thanks so much for joining us. Whew, that was a great time, Susan. It's a great conversation. Thank you for sharing all that you do and your vision. How would you like people to come to you now for more working with you or to know more about you?
Yes, great. So you can visit my website, which is susanbauer.com, and it's Bauer, susanbauer.com. And a few things there. There's information about embodiment in education, which is my teacher training program. And then there's also information about working with me individually. And if you join the newsletter, there's a free audio of me guiding you in a somatic movement practice. It's about 20 minutes. Great for the holidays if you're stressed and you want some kind of time
Grounding.
grounding,
Mm,
down, inner work for a few moments of recuperation. You'll get the free audio of me guiding that. And then you get my newsletter, comes out about once a month with all the new programs I'm offering. And last,
yes.
if anyone's listening and would like to join me live, I'm actually teaching in person tonight in Berkeley.
Oh,
Taught in person since the pandemic. It's a
yeah.
3 week series. It started last week, but there's one tonight and one next Monday at the Alembic Center in Berkeley. So come on and join us for experiential embodied anatomy class.
Anatomy. That's amazing. So they can just come there. Or do they have to register?
They have to register on Eventbrite, but if you go to the Alembic, or you could go to my website and you'll see the link to go to
See
the,
that there.
yeah, and it's
Nice.
30 to 8:30. And we're going to be looking at the support of our skeletal system and the fluid um,
We're
breadth,
doing this.
yeah, breadth, depth of our organs that also support us from inside the skeletal system. So that's what we're going to be playing with tonight.
Amazing. Thank you. I want to run out and get one of those anatomy coloring books.
Uh,
It's inspiring. Thanks
yes.
so much, Susan.
Thank
Thanks
you, Matt.
everyone who joined us.
I appreciate all you're doing with your coaching and with inviting people on to share their life stories. It's really wonderful to connect with you again. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's been 100% treat for me.
Mm.
Talk to you soon,
Bye
Susan.
bye,
Bye.
everyone, for coming.